Hello, my name is Bob, and I'm a member of the Champlain Valley Woodcarvers, and we have decided to start some short how-to videos on how to begin carving, what kind of tools you need to begin carving, some of the first cuts you'll make in carving, and some of those different things that people have questions about as they come to learn how to carve. The basic carving, this particular video today, we're just going to look at the basic kit that you need, the basic tools you need for to start carving something. And then next one we will be looking at the cuts, the basic cuts that you do. There's basically 4 cuts that you use on a carving like this man's face, or even this little tiny troll that has been done. Not a lot of fancy cuts or anything of that sort to make a good caricature of an individual, or if you're going to try to do some kind of a dolphin or something of an animal of some sort, like I'm working on this dolphin right now, and all the same kind of cuts, just 4 basic cuts. Once in a while we might use something different like a small gouge, but we'll cover all those things in this particular one. Okay, let's take a moment to look at a basic kit here. You'll see a lot of knives, a lot of tools here, different kinds of knives and gouges and specialty knives that are in this kit. We don't use them all the time, but we'll look at some of the equipment that we recommend for your first carving session, and some of the equipment that we don't recommend, because there are some things like using Grandpa's old folding knife to cut with is a good way to cut your finger. They have a tendency to fold up on us at the wrong time. So we'll look at some of these things. Each of the particular tools that you need to, very basic tools that you need to begin carving. Okay, as we begin, I may emphasize the very first thing you need is some safety equipment, and there's not much for a wood carver, but there are some things that we recommend. These are cut resistant gloves. They're not cut proof, but they do have material in them. On the back side of these gloves, when you look at them, it says cut level is number 5, and it has in there some reinforcement to keep you from cutting into your non-dominant hand, the hand that's holding the piece that you're working on. The dominant hand, of course, is the one that you will be carving with, probably. They are very good for keeping you from nicking yourself. Let me get one on here quickly. You put it in your non-dominant hand as you're working on it. If you take have a knife and you're carving, should your knife be a little long and you hit here, it won't cut right through. It'll stop and minimize the damage to your skin. You don't want too many cuts on your skin repeatedly. And the only problem with it is, with those sharp points on there, anything that if you are trying to run your knife through something, that's not a good practice to begin with. But if it slips and it hits there, that's going to penetrate. It's going to go deep into your muscles in your hand. So it's good for protecting the surface of your skin from those, I guess you would say, glancing blows of a knife blade. So first of all, we have here a glove for your hand. Now some people, because as we'll show you in the next video, the different cuts we have. One of the cuts we have is a pulling cut that pulls the knife blade toward your thumb of your dominant hand, and sometimes you can make a mistake and you might bring the blade into your thumb. So there are little leather thumb protectors that can go over your thumb, or you can wrap them in some of the tape that they have. But the main thing is to keep your thumb out of the way of the blade. The second thing we need is something to keep your blade sharp, as they tell us oftentimes that a dull blade will be more apt to cut the user much easier. And that's really a truism, in the sense that a dull blade will not bite into the wood quite as easy. It may skate across it and then you end up cutting yourself. So what we use is some form of a stropping mechanism. It's simply something that we take that we can we use. It's a piece of leather on a solid board. We use a bit of compound, polishing compound. You rub it on, and then you keep the edge of your blade sharp by stropping on it. And however many times you go one way, go the same number of times the other way. And it'll be a mirror finish. It'll be a very sharp finish. And you do that sometimes when you're carving. You may do that, 5-6 times an hour to keep your blade sharp, or more, depending on the kind of wood that you've got. So the strops can come in different sizes. You can have one the handmade one like I've made here, or you can get just a piece of leather. Use either side, the polished side, the smooth side, or the rough side. And you still need to have the polish to put on it. Well, I'll get this out. There we go. And again, same thing. You just rub the polish on, and then you can strop your knife. So you need a strop, you need the safety equipment, especially a glove for your hand. You need the polishing compound for your strop. Now you need the actual tool to cut with. Okay, I'm going to show you a lot of tools different kinds of configurations of blades. We'll start with the most dangerous one first, and that is getting somebody's old Boker pocket knife. This is good for what it's intended for. It's intended to carry in your pocket, to use it to open boxes, to open bales of hay, maybe cut strings, maybe cut down a weed or two that's in your garden. But it is not good for, even though the blade is made of good steel, and you can sharpen this one. I haven't sharpened this one in a long time. It's good steel. The locking mechanism is missing in this kind of a blade. You don't want to use a pocket knife like that for your carving tool, because it has a tendency to want to bend on you, and if it does and you're holding it like such, it'll bend and get you across the fingers, and that could be not only painful but devastating in many ways. There are some folding ones that can be used. This is a locking one. You'll see this one here is a Warren tool, and this is meant to carry in your pocket, and a little bit like the Opinel pocket knife that comes from overseas, but in it there is just a minute here. There we go. There are slots that, if you can see that, I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but slots that the blade sets in, and then you take it, pull it out, and you position these so that it locks it in a different position, so it cannot be come down on your fingers. And this is a good traveling knife, if this is all you're looking for, something to whittle with. A good one. This is a Warren tool. I believe they still make them and they're still available, but they are not widely used. The one problem with them is the round handle that has a tendency to want to twist in your hand. Another one similar to that is these little tools, and I'm not sure who makes this particular one, but the handle unscrews, the collar comes down, and the blade is replaceable. You can take and put a new blade in very easily. Don't have to worry so much about the sharpening, I guess, if that's your thing, but it's a very good way to start. This, I believe, was started out as a tool to work leather with. We're not meant for wood carving at first, but it works for wood carving. Now we have a bunch of tools, knives, everything from the cheapest ones to the most expensive ones, or more expensive ones. I don't have the most expensive ones. I don't feel they're necessary in that respect, but these are very good ones. Some of these are very good ones. Here's a few of the knives that I use regularly, and they all do the job the way they should. Now, this is called a whittling jack. The only complaint I have with this is a very difficult knife to sharpen. I've stroked this and I've got a nice edge on it right now, but it seems to dull quickly. But it's got a good shape to the handle, and it's a very sturdy blade. You can see here, thicker than most of the blades that you'll see me show you today. But there's a basic carving knife, basically shaped after a type of the Sloyd bench knives that we might have used. Here's another, and that's a very inexpensive one. I think it was less than $15. This one's another very inexpensive one. It was toted as a Damascus steel. Again, very hard to, I find it very hard to get a good polished blade edge to it. It seems to have, it's hard to see it with that design, but it seems to have a hollow ground in it. There's a little bit of a concave to that blade, and it makes it difficult. The other problem with it is it's a round handle, and when you're carving, sometimes that'll slip on you sideways and turn a bit. This one is a nice detail knife, even though it's pretty long. This one has for a detail knife, which is a very thin, small knife with sharp point, this one has a blade length of 1.5 inches, and it's a very good one. I've used it quite a bit. The only problem with that is when you're carving on something, you have to be very careful, because as you're coming, you can see that it'll, in normal use, it'll come across your thumb or your base of your thumb, and you have to be very aware where that tip is at all times. But it's very sharp, easy to sharpen, keeps an edge, and it's a very good tool to get into tight places. These two are made by the same company. I think it's called Elemental Tools or something like that. And this one has, again, about 1.5 inches. No, this one has about 2.25 inch blade. And this is basically a basic carving knife. It's got a flat handle, flat scales to the handle. Good for taking off a lot of wood at one point. Good choice. This particular one is a larger one I use for hogging off a lot of wood, and it's made by Beavercraft, and that they come from Ukraine, and they are about 3 inches long, that blade is, but it's good for getting rid of a lot of wood quickly, and you got a good handle feel to it. It's not so good for detail work. These next two are OCC handmade blades. This one and this one, a larger and a smaller one. The smaller blade is about an inch of the cutting length of the blade, and the larger one is about 1.25 inches. But these are the ones that I use most often. They get a lot of work from me, and they are very good for detail work and for, you know, some pretty solid stock removal. And then we have one here that is made by Flex Cut. They have very good steel in theirs. These are a little different than their they have a set of gouges and chisels that they make that are interchangeable in small handles, and the blades seem to be a little bit sturdier than those chisels that we use in the gouges that we have. But they are made from some kind of a spring steel. Very good ones to use. My grandson uses one quite often, and they come in many different configurations. The price range, I'm going to concentrate on these because I wouldn't recommend any of those others that I showed you at this point. But any one of these are, I believe they're about $15 to $20 a piece. This is about $20. These are about $25 to $30. The Flex Cut are probably about the same, about $30 at this particular point. So there's not very much to get a knife that is of quality enough to begin carving. So for the very first part of this, what you need is protection for your hands, strop and polish to keep your knife sharp, and you need a knife. The only other thing you might want, you may want some kind of a pencil to mark, or even a tape or a ruler to measure on some of your things. We usually, after you get carving a little bit, you won't have to do that so often. But here is the very basic kit that you need to start doing a carving. You don't have to have anything else. If you want to include other things, there are such things as small palm gouges that can be used. They are excellent for some things. You could do a whole carving with them probably if you wanted to. There's larger spoon gouges that come in handy on a larger wood carving. And then there's these small gouges like this one that I have used in gouging out the wood on this particular porpoise to remove wood. That's basically all. I don't use it for definition. I do the definition with my knife. This particular is an old chisel that was my father's, and it's from Buck Brothers company, and it's quite an old one. It's from back in the 40s or 50s, I believe it would be from. If you're interested in something like spoon carving or small bowl carving, you still need to have a good knife, probably something more along the lines of this particular knife. But with that, you could also will need some kind of a hook knife, a spoon knife. This one or either one of those are very good, and these are for right-handed person, they have a cutting edge on this side. This side is blunt. You can actually put your hand on there. But then they have also a double-edged hook knife, and that can be brought one way, brought the other. You can go back and forth and clear out a lot of chips, a lot of wood very quickly. This one again is a Beavercraft hook knife, and it works well for me. I know some people may not like it, but that it is a good one for myself. But basically, that is the necessity. You could get something a little bit more beefy like this rather than the OCC that I had, something a little bigger to begin with, and do a lot of your carving with this, even your detail carving. You can get into different places. You can get down pretty close. You can get down on the side of the nose. You can make your V cuts here and such, and that is a very viable type of size of a knife. Most people don't like a 3-inch blade. They would prefer something more for a larger blade, something more maybe like this size, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and this is a good size as well. But at any rate, this is the very basics that you need.